Hi, I'm Tim. Join me in this video to go over the Blade 120 SR micro helicopter. We'll do an unboxing, we'll go over the helicopter, its unique features, and I'll give you a flight lesson because I had to teach myself how to fly this helicopter. Let's get to it. I am an RC airplane pilot. I love flying fixed-wing RC airplanes. I'm an observer of the RC helicopters, but I do not consider myself a helicopter pilot. I flew some of the toy Astrohogs a while back. This is my first time flying an actual 4-channel helicopter. A quick history of model helicopters. Helicopters are hard to build. There's very complex mechanical things that have to work to do that. Probably the first practical RC model helicopter was a Dubro Whirlybird 505. It came out about 1972. It was a masterpiece of intricate construction. It used a 0.40 gas-powered motor on top of the mast. A lot of complex mechanics in there, specialized landing gear, and some people actually flew that thing. The problem was it didn't have advantage of electronics. The two big things that evolved to help make practical helicopter flying possible was the development of the brushless electric motors with LiPo batteries and small microelectronics, specifically gyro stabilization. Once all that came into place, the stage was set to have very practical, well-flying radar control model helicopters. So this is the Blade 120 SR micro helicopter. The rotor dimensions are about 12.5 inches. It weighs about 3.75 ounces with a battery. It's just a wonderful little helicopter. This helicopter is no longer in production. It was produced about 2011, 2012. This was very nicely sent to me by a viewer, John H. John, thank you very much for sending this. Just to have a chance to fly it and do a video, which I'm doing now. You can still get these. If you do a check, eBay is probably your best source of these. Also, you may see them at Swap Meet. Maybe a club member might have one. But it was one of the first real single rotor aircraft that was practical that people could fly with. Helicopters, when they first made the model helicopters, they used coaxial cables. That's with two rotors organizing their rotation on the main mast. There's no tail rotor. The two rotors cut out the torque. This is a pretty good way to make a stable helicopter that flies. It's common with the early RC helicopters. The problem is these helicopters are very stable. They're not aerobatic. By having this methodology with the rotor, with the fly bar, and notice on the tail rotor, there's no belts or conveyor system to do the tail rotor. It is a separate motor here for the tail rotor, a motor here, and then a separate motor for the main rotor in the helicopter. This is the box that the helicopter comes in. I'll spare you the unboxing. Everything is included: the helicopter, the transmitter, the batteries, the chargers. The Blade 120 SR uses 2.4 gigahertz DSM-2 technology for the transmitter. This version, the transmitter came with the helicopter. There are other versions, a bind and fly version, where if you have a DSM-2 transmitter, you can bind your transmitter to the helicopter. John sent this, so I just use this transmitter here with it. So again, everything is completely assembled. You don't have to do anything. You literally take it out of the box, charge the battery, put 4 AA batteries in the transmitter, and you can go fly the helicopter. As I mentioned earlier, the miniaturized lightweight electronics are the key to allowing these things to happen. And what the Blade has in it, there is a device right here that is a 5-in-1 unit, and it has 5 important electrical components in it. It has the receiver to receive the signal from the transmitter. It has the main rotor. This is the main rotor right here. The motor is located right here. The electronic speed control is in this box. It has mixer. It has the solid state lightweight gyros for electronic stabilization and proportional servos to control the control surfaces. All that's located in one. So it all is designed to work together fine, and it really comes together well with a well-flying helicopter. Also, as an aside, You can find this on the Phoenix RC flight simulator, maybe on some other flight simulators, but if you can find it on a computer-based flight simulator, that will help with your training as well. This is the manual that comes with a helicopter. It's a very complete manual. Don't be intimidated by the size. There's about 5 languages in here, but it has everything you need to do to get up and running with the helicopter. Things as basic as putting in the batteries, charging it. Notice that with this transmitter, you have to bind the transmitter to the helicopter. That's an electronic handshake between this transmitter and your helicopter. With this transmitter, it comes already binded. There are instructions in the manual. For whatever reason, it is not binded how to do that. I'm not going to go through that. You have to go through that step by step. And also, there are some very practical instructions on the controls, how they affect the helicopter, that should be good preparation for your initial flights. I found them very helpful. So what I'd like to do now is just put in the battery into the helicopter, connect it, and then with the transmitter, and show you that process. The very important thing, I repeat, very important thing you need to know on this before you fly your helicopter, the transmitter always has to be on whenever you have a battery in the helicopter. So we turn on the transmitter, put in the battery. When we're done flying, we disconnect the battery, then turn off the transmitter. If you don't do that, if you plug the battery into the helicopter with the transmitter off, what will happen is the receiver in the helicopter will automatically enter the bind mode. It's looking for a transmitter to bind. You don't want to get it out of the bind mode if it's already binded. So this on first, and then the helicopter. So we have the transmitter right here. We have this single cell 500 milliamp battery that is designed for the helicopter. This is the helicopter, and this is the slot where the battery goes in. Notice you have the connectors between the battery and the helicopter. Polarity is important. Just make sure the white and black wires land up. The connectors are such, you shouldn't do it backwards, but that will absolutely fry it if you get that wrong. As I mentioned, we turn on the transmitter first. Goes to on. The way that it's on is that red light right there. Keep the throttle low. So this is on. Now, the other thing that I didn't mention is when you plug in the battery, you want the helicopter to be as still as possible so the gyros can align themselves when it's still on the ground. If you're moving the helicopter, the gyros can't align. So what we'll do is we'll slide the battery into its holder. You just put it like that. And you have to kind of fiddle around with the controllers, observing the polarity. And what will happen is I'll connect it, make it still, and you'll hear a little chirp when it has aligned itself. So we connect this, still. You heard that little chirp, that means that it's okay. So it is now working. You can see fore and aft with the controls, left and right. I'm not going to, well, do a little bit of power right there. You can see that that works, and the rotor, all that works automatically. Now, another important thing, when the red light is steady, that's the high rate mode for advanced flying. Because I am not by any stretch an advanced flyer, we want to go to the low rate mode. That's indicated by a flashing red light. Per the instructions, you take this control stick and you just press it in. So listen to the click. And there's the flashing red light there. So now we're in the training mode. The battery's in place. Everything is all set to go ahead and give the helicopter a test flight. So as I promised in the introduction, I'm going to give you an introductory flight lesson. I had to teach myself how to fly this helicopter, so I had to break this down. I'm going to do this for you now. Again, 10 years ago, I flew some of the Astrohog, the little $20 toy helicopters. They flew fine, but they were 2-channel helicopters. You did not have full 4-channel control. This, you have the full 4 channels of control. So it's described in the manual, and it's somewhat similar to an airplane. This is a transmitter right here. When we move the stick left or right as the rotator is moving, what will happen is the helicopter will slide left or slide right. The important thing, when you do it left or right, an airplane will bank and then go into a turn. This will simply go sideways as long as you have that in there. Similarly, this is fore and aft. This will automatically adjust as a fly bar, so the helicopter goes fore or it goes aft. And that's what happens with this stick right here. This stick, or the rudder, will adjust the rotation of the tail rotor, And you'll see this in the flight video. The helicopter will literally rotate back and forth with the rudder going back and forth. And the throttle adjusts the height of the helicopter. One thing to keep in mind, this is fairly intuitive when you're back of the helicopter, forward, back, sideways, left, right. When you turn this to the right, what'll happen is the nose of the helicopter will go to the right, even though the tail swings to the left. So a right turn like this means that the helicopter goes this way. So you just have to keep that in the back of your mind. So what I recommend when you, first of all, it's a lightweight helicopter, it's 3.75 ounces. You need a fairly large area to fly it. We have an activity room that we'll use for these flights, which I think is a good size. It can't be much smaller. If you have access to a gym or a community center, that's the best thing to do. You can fly it outside, but just the smallest amount of wind will impact the ability to fly. When you're learning how to fly, eliminating wind from your training will help immeasurably. The other thing that I found as I taught myself how to fly this, I think the most important control is the throttle. If you don't get the throttle right, everything just kind of falls apart. Because what will happen is, as you add power, the rotor speeds up and the helicopter will start to lift off. If you're a little bit hesitant adding the power, it's going to drift a little bit. Now you're trying to fly it very close to the ground. I have found from practice, add sufficient power to get the helicopter up and flying, let it be stabilized, and then you can fly it from there. If you're going up and down with the altitude of the throttle, it is almost impossible to get a stabilized flight with a helicopter. So if you can practice and discipline yourself to have a steady throttle application to keep it as level as possible, you'll be miles ahead. If the helicopter gets away from you, and this will happen in your training, don't try to fight it. You're not going to recover it. Throttle back, let it land. You want to throttle back to minimize damage from the blades hitting the walls or something like that. You don't want full power as you're smacking into a wall. That just is not what the helicopter is designed to do. So practice is really the key. Charge the battery. I'm getting about 5 or 6 minute flights out of the battery. The helicopter is an extremely honest helicopter. Just whatever I have asked it to do, it seems to have done once you get the throttle under control and you just get comfortable flying it. For the initial flights, it's best to be looking at the helicopter this way at the tail. It is more normal when you're going left, right. Remember, just like with an RC model, when it's coming at you, when you put the controls to the right, the airplane goes to the left because it's coming at you. That will come with time, but the initial flights, especially the hover, if you can just be looking at the tail of the helicopter, I think it'll make it a lot more easier for these initial practice flights. So that discussion of the initial flight lesson, let's go out to the activity room. We will do one flight. I'll show you the flight uncut from start to finish. It really went quite well. And I'll add some commentary in the initial part of the flight, what I'm thinking about as I'm doing this flight. Here is our test flight, and we're adding some power. Just get that throttle setting up so you can get a stable hover and altitude. Then you can sort out the fore-aft sideways movement with the stick. The model is very steady in its flight. Also, there's no wind inside. You see it bobbing up and down a little bit, just trying to get the throttle where it should be. It turns here. That is right from the rudder. You can see how positive when it turns. As it slides to the left or right, it'll bank a little bit. That's just the way the helicopter rotor works. But a very stable flying helicopter. If you can keep that throttle setting for a constant altitude, it'll make it a lot easier to practice your flights. And as always, look at the stance of the helicopter is pointed away from you. It'll make the orientation for your practice flights a lot easier, I think. Thank you very much for joining me in this video. John, again, thanks for sending the helicopter. It was a lot of fun learning how to do this. It's a true 4-channel helicopter. We all watch YouTube videos of the young kids doing their aerobatics and things like that. There are people that can do magic with helicopters, but this was a fun introduction to 4-channel flight, full control, and if you stumble upon one of these, I think it'll be a good addition to your flying fleet. Good day.